scripture today will be coming from 1 Peter 4:12 through 14, and it says, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trials when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's suffering, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed." Verse 14. "If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you."
All right. This thing on? I'm glad it's on now and not in the last 30 minutes because you'd had to hear me sing, and that'd be terrible. What an awesome job Alex has done this morning. What a beautiful spirit and how it comes out in his singing. Amen. You see the hoops there. Everybody has seen those with me this morning. You're like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to juggle. I'm not going to juggle. If I start juggling, this has gone terribly wrong. Alex, just come up and start singing, pull the hook, and get me out of here. That is not my intention today. When Marcus asked me to do this about a week or so ago, I said no. I said no in my head. I've made it a habit to do things that I'm uncomfortable doing. I'm terribly uncomfortable right now. And so I say yes. And so my text response was, yes, I'll do it. And then I accused him of maybe wanting to get some brownie points for the church by getting them out early, because this is not going to last that long. And he said that's not the case, that he would be watching from West Virginia to make sure that I go at least 30 minutes. And I was completely shocked. I'm like, not the 30 minutes part. It was the part that they actually have internet in West Virginia, and he's able to watch this. So that's for you, Marcus, if you are, in fact, watching this. I'm glad to be here this morning. I really am. This, as nerve-wracking as it is to do things like this, it's always good to go through the process, right, in order to prepare for these. I'm a coach by trade. You guys that know me, I coach football, I coach track. And so really what I do for a living is, aside from all the organizational things that I do, is I'm an encourager. That's my job. My job is to make or help people do more than what they would do themselves. Athletes, my coaches, everybody. So if somehow this turns into a pep talk, hey, we're on Team Jesus, go team. All right, and I apologize for that. If some crazy way I end up stepping on anybody's toes, it's not my intention today. Know that I'm always preaching to myself. So as a coach, one of my favorite verses is 1 Corinthians 9:24. You'll see that this is not much of a leap, right? "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize." You can see where it doesn't matter what sport you're playing. A coach could pull that out in their pregame speech, and you could make that tie into what is going on. This morning, I want to talk a little bit about the sport of track and field. It's one of my favorite things. I attempted to do it in college. I wasn't really good enough, but it was great training for being a coach later on. Coaches love track because it is one of the purest forms of competition that there is. There's really not a lot of things that can go wrong that you can blame on anybody else. You are completely exposed out there. It is you versus everyone else. You have the exact same distance, right, that you have to run, or the mark that you're trying to set, whatever that is. And so what I want to talk about today is going fast. In most events in track, it involves running. Like you run and jump, you can sprint full speed, or maybe you go 4 hours in a marathon, which I have no intention of ever attempting. God bless those people that do. But when you're going fast, your body has this magical chemical that is stored inside its muscles called ATP. All right, I'm not going to get into all of the science of it, but everyone has about 10 seconds worth of this chemical stored in your muscles. So when you watch the Olympics last summer, those guys that ran and women that ran the 100 meters, they used ATP. That was the only source of energy. Boom, they're through it, right? They don't really have a chance to get tired in that amount of time because you have that chemical in your muscles that gives you that 10-second burst. It takes about 30 minutes to an hour to replenish that, right? And so personally, I don't ever have to worry about running out of ATP because I know that if I were to run full speed for 3 to 4 seconds, something would pop loose and I'd be done. So I'm good. I got all my ATP. I'm ready to go, no doubt. I love all events in track. I lean towards the hurdles. I was a hurdler. I coach my kids to do hurdles. I have an outstanding hurdler at my school right now. But the race I want to talk about this morning is the 400 meters, because it's hard, right? The 400 meters are often called the quarter because it's a quarter of a mile. It is one lap around the track, just one, but it's as fast as you can make it happen. You have to be tough to run this race. We tell our boys that it's a man's race, right? We try to encourage them and tell them how difficult it is, but it's a point of pride to be able to accomplish it and do it right. Now, the 400 meters, each 100 meters of the 400 meters is kind of its own race, right? The first curve, the first 100 meters, you've got ATP, you're good to go, right? That doesn't hurt, I'm going fast. At least that's what you're supposed to do. And then a coach is going to coach you in the backstretch in that second 200 meters to stay tall, be efficient, keep your knees up. Don't waste energy, but don't lose your speed. Keep going. And then you get into that third 100, that curve. That's when things get a little crazy, right? Sometimes we call that the dark corner, because the stadiums, if you've been to a high school football stadium or any stadium for that matter, for the most part, the lights, if you're at a night track meet, the lights are actually designed for the field and not for the track. So the curve, it is dark over there in the curve. And if your training hasn't really been where it needs to be, or maybe your resolve is not where it needs to be, somewhere in that dark curve, we like to joke that there's a gorilla out of the dark that comes and jumps on your back and makes that really difficult, right? That extra weight, that extra burden. That's what it looks like sometimes. That third 100 meters is where you take your first false step, right? The first 200 meters, you're feeling pretty good. You're going pretty fast, right? Your lungs are starting to burn a little bit in that third 300. That's when your first step is not right. That's when your knees don't want to get up quite as big. That's when things start getting difficult and you have to start making decisions on how hard you're going to finish this thing, right? So you may have a gorilla on your back. You may very well have a gorilla on your back and you're trying to get through that 300, and then you get to that home stretch, and somewhere in that home stretch, some athletes are going to find a piano in their lane that they've got to push to finish, right? It looks like that. You've seen these, it's just absolutely torture to finish this race, right? And that is dependent on how much training they've had going into it, how much experience they've had going into it, right? Or how they approached that race, or maybe what they ate that day, or how they took care of themselves, or what else they've done that day on what that looks like. The best version of this race is actually the 4x4. I said track is not really a team sport, but this is one where you really squeeze the best out of these athletes. You put a baton in their hand and you give them 3 teammates that are depending on them, right? The color of our medal or the color of our ribbon or what happens to our time is dependent on every single person that carries that baton. And so oftentimes you will see athletes really do their best because of that added pressure when you see that. And when they finish that quarter and they hand off that baton, oftentimes you'll see them, they'll just fall out, or they'll just make it off the track and they'll fall down, right? Or they finish that race and they just stagger off to the infield and they collapse, and they want to just sit there. They're in so much pain, they just want to sit because they know that it was running that caused it, so I want to stop doing anything that resembles that, right? But that is the opposite of what they should do. They should not just sit there in that pain. That's the worst thing they can do. And so they have teammates that have been trained up, and they're coaches, they know, and they're going to come over and they're going to pick them up and they're going to make them walk it out a little bit, and they're going to try to get some of that pain out by that next movement, right? And those are their teammates. They know better. If they've been through it, or anybody that has been through it, they know, I got to get this person up. I need to get them moving. I need to get this pain moving from their legs. Our scripture reading this morning comes from 1 Peter 4, 12 and 13. I didn't have 14, so I'm not going to preach on that last verse. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop at 12 and 13. But it says, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, so that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. Beloved is from the Greek agapeti, an extension of agape, which is multiple times in the Bible. This is how God describes his love for Christ. And I think Peter here, he's writing to the Christians that have been scattered and they're undergoing terrible persecution. This is like 60 AD, somewhere in there, and things are not going well for Christians. And so he writes this letter as a form of encouragement, right? And just like Christians of today, we also need encouragement. The fiery trial that comes to test you is going to bring up different images and thoughts for each one of us. We have all had trials, or maybe we're going through something right now. And so each one of us will have our own perspective of what that means to have a trial or to have a struggle. And in today's lesson, I'm not going to give you the answers to the questions. I'm going to have you kind of conjure up your own thoughts and your own memories and images of things that you know that you have gone through, right? And things that you have dealt with or possibly dealing with today. Our life is a series of events that are sometimes hard to bear. We can even foresee things that we know are coming and would like to avoid. And then he hits us with rejoice. Rejoice. So he just said hard times are to be expected, and then we should be happy about it. What a crazy concept, and what a hard concept to wrap our heads around, especially if you're going through something right now, for someone to say rejoice and you're struggling. But it's even a difficult concept even if you're not going through something right now. No one inherently likes to go through hard things or deal with pain. Instead, it's something that we have to train ourselves to process the way that a Christian should. When I was preparing my lesson, I was going to give you like a list of all the struggles that you might be going through. But there's no need for that, because I know that you know what you've already gone through. And it's more important for you right now to be reflecting on the things that you've dealt with and the things that you've gone through than for me to give you a list of those things. We all know that we live in this world, and it is a worldly place, and it is sometimes out to get us, okay? We deal with trials that are small, seemingly, inconsequential, insignificant, all the way up to life-changing moments that we're not sure if we're going to be able to survive at all. And I'm sure those thoughts are spinning in your head right now. And so you know what you've gone through, you know what you're going through now, and you know what's on the horizon. That is life. I think life is sometimes like the weather in Texas. And I know you've probably heard this before, but if you don't like it, or even if you do, just wait a minute, it's going to change, right? That is Texas. And in the verse he says, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised at these changes. Don't be surprised at these trials, right? We're not surprised when we walk into church and it feels one way and we walk out at something different, right? Don't tell me you haven't been caught without an umbrella, all right? It was sunny when I walked in, all right, but there's a pop-up storm when I went out, or it was 70 degrees when I walked in, and there's a 20-mile-an-hour north wind when I left, right? That happens to us, but it doesn't completely derail our lives. And why is that? Because we are not surprised. We have come to expect change in something like Texas weather, right? God expects us to understand that trials are coming, and it shouldn't completely derail our lives. And how do we celebrate those? Now, we may not be experiencing the persecution that Peter's letter is addressing, but we do have our tough times. We have things that are outside of our control, and we have to navigate. And how do we approach these situations? What is our role as Christians when we see those that we care about going through it? What is our role? What is your role? The runner that was laying on the ground in pain had his teammates to pick him up. In Galatians 6:2, it says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. The law he's speaking of is love your neighbor, okay? We could have an entire series of lessons on love your neighbor, but in our context this morning, we see that one way that we can fulfill this law of loving your neighbor is to bear each other's burdens or to share our load. I know that our church does a fantastic job of food, water, shelter. When something tragic happens, when there is loss, when some calamity happens, we take care of that. And as Christians, loving our neighbor and bearing their burdens can also just be as simple as a shoulder to cry on or an ear to listen to. You don't want to discount the value of a sympathetic ear, because sometimes just saying something out loud will release that, right? It'll release that pain from you, just getting it out loud and not sitting on it, not allowing it to just, the cage that is our mind, letting it free and letting it off of there. So that is something that is really important, that is simple for us to do. Another thing is, in Hebrews, we are commanded to gather together. The writer in Hebrews 10 and 24 and 25 wants us to stir up each other in love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together. not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together. I don't think he's just talking about the traditions and rituals that is Sunday morning, that is church, right? I think what he's getting at is people need people, right? You need the people that are surrounding you right now. You need the people in your life that encourage you, and maybe just as importantly, they need you. Amen? And that is why we are commanded together. Venn diagram. All right, here we go. Not going to juggle. You know what? And for my purposes today, I'm just going to grab two. And for Marcus, it's going to be purple and gold, not green and gold. You may get that. All right, so I was thinking about our relationships, and my mind goes in crazy ways, and when I thought about what I'm going to preach on, it started over here, and it's finishing somewhere over there, and I don't even know where this is going to go today, but where we're at right now is a Venn diagram, and a Venn diagram is a thing you see that's got circles. This would be a great opportunity for me to have slides, but I don't. So I got this instead. A Venn diagram it's a series of circles on a sheet of paper or in a spreadsheet on a deal that has information inside of it. It could be numbers, it could be words. In our purposes today, these are going to be experiences. So like I'm the purple one and you're the yellow one, and we have experiences, and all the experiences of life, good, bad, and indifferent, are written down in there, right? And anything that we have shared in common, the Venn diagram, the circles overlap. And that information is in that overlap, okay? Anything that we have gone through together would be in the middle of that. And so I started thinking about our overlapping circles, and how did you pick your best friend, right? Your best friend, what does that overlap look like? Probably not like this. It's probably way more like this, right? You had a lot of things in common, and that's what bonded you guys together. What about your spouse, right? 50 years, awesome, amen? All right, that is awesome. My wife and I have actually been married for just a little bit longer than we were alive before we were married. So our circles are overlapping big time, right? And they overlapped a lot to begin with because that we shared a lot of things in common, and that's what makes your spouse your person, right? And then as life goes on, you get more and more and more. I think about in the school business, we have new kids. You have new kids that come into a school and they have to find their people. Now, when I went to school, which my daughter loves to say, back in the 1900s, things were different then. They were, and that's okay to admit. Things were a lot different. But when I walked into I went to 3 different schools, as my dad was a football coach and bounced around a little bit as well. I went to a new high school, and you walk into the new high school at some point in the 1900s, and there's going to be kids that are wearing boots and jeans. There's going to be kids that are wearing leather jackets. There's going to be kids that are dressed way too nice for school. And there's going to be some kids that are dressed way differently, and they're probably in some sort of performing arts in the school. And that was it, right? You had to fit in. And so being a kid during those days, I could walk into that new school, and it was pretty simple for me to find, I'm probably going to find my people here, right? This just on the outside looking in, this is where I'm probably going to find my connections, right? I'm going to have some overlap in this group. Now today, if you were to walk into the high school that I teach at, it is a different day. It is 2024. We're at a different age. Kids look like they just got out of bed, gave it the smell test, and put it on. So they all kind of look the same. It's different. It's different. Our kids are really pretty good about accepting new people, but it's a pretty neat phenomenon to watch kids that come into the athletic program or just kids that come into the school in general. You'll watch them bounce around, right, until they find some overlap, until they find the group that is accepting to them or some things that they have in common with. And as Christians, I was thinking about this is how much does it take, right? How much overlap does it take? If we're assembling together and we're around each other and we're spending time together, I think just a sliver has value, right? Just a little bit, just a way to get in the door and start that conversation and start to find out where it is that we can help each other and we can encourage each other. That's all that it takes. I'm going to put these down now. I can juggle, but I'm not going to. All right. Trials of life. As I'm going through this, I'm thinking about the two different categories of trials of life. Like up until now, we've kind of been talking about things that happen to you. things that are out of your control, right? You experience life every day. There's little bitty things, there's huge things, but it happens to you, and you are dealing with these outside things, the parts of life, the trials that are happening to you. The other type of trials are the trials that you put yourself through. The trials that we put ourselves through are sometimes the most difficult because we feel like we have a choice. We don't have to. Could have said no to Marcus, right? You can avoid the trials that you don't want to put yourself through. You can rationalize your way out of it. You can procrastinate. You procrastinators out there? Mm-hmm. And so those are some of the hardest things to deal with. When a kid runs the 400 meters, the first time they do it, it happened to them. They had no idea what they were about to go through, right? But the second time they do it, they know what they've signed up for. They know how bad this is going to hurt. Coaches actually earn probably the majority of their pay, if they're coaching track, getting a kid to do that again and do it right. That's hard. You already know what that's going to be like. Like there's something that you have to get through, but you know it's going to be hard. How do you make yourself do that? That is self-discipline. You wouldn't believe, the mile relay is the last race of the track meet. I think it's the most exciting. That's why they put it there. They keep people there longer. When you're running the mile relay, the rest of your team is already packed up camp, right? They've put stuff on the bus, so they're ready to go, and then we spread our teammates out all the way around the track. Right? So no matter which part of that 400 meters that you're running, we've got some encouragers along the way. And as you get towards the end of the track meet, oftentimes the kids that are running that mile relay, actually they run the hurdles and something else. And the only quarter that they have to run that day is on the mile relay. And they know what they're signed up for. And they will have some injuries. All of a sudden, after they've run the best time of their life in a different race, all of a sudden, oh, coach, this, it's tight. And we like to have fun with them, so we're like, is that your spleen? Oh, yeah, I think so. It's like this. I think you got that conjunctivitis in your knee. Oh, for sure, coach, that is what it is. I know it. I can feel it. It's conjunctiviting in my knee, and I'm struggling. And if they're successful talking their coach into getting off of it, I've already talked to Johnny and he'll do it for me, right? And if the coach makes that decision to put somebody else on there, all of a sudden, they start feeling it. Man, they're cheering them on, and their spleen heals magically at some time during that race. That's what's special about it to me is the self-discipline that it takes, because in order to do it right, it's going to hurt. Self-discipline is you having to put yourself through something that you just don't want to. You can't run the 400 the right way, right, without pain. You can't live this life the right way without it either. It's going to happen. We have to train ourselves to be comfortable being uncomfortable. We all have fears and failures, or fears of failures, that come in different forms. And what is holding you back? What's holding you back from being the best version of you? We will all have our own different answer to that. Everyone is different and unique, and you have a thought in your head of what it is. I don't know what that is, but you do. You're thinking about it right now. Now, when I evaluate my coaches at the end of the year, I go through, I meet with I have 30-something coaches, and I have a sit-down with each one of them, 30 minutes to an hour, and I go through all these lists of things that their duties are during the year, and we kind of decide together, this was good, this wasn't good. And then we get to the back of the page, and I write down these 3 things, and you may have heard these before, but it's a great self-evaluation tool and a goal-setting opportunity. I want us to kind of go through this today. Start, stop, continue is what I write real big on the back of that piece of paper. And so when I'm asking them about how their year went, start is something that you're not doing right now, but would help you be the best version of you if you started doing this thing. Okay? And so for a coach, it could be a myriad of things, right? Is this something I haven't been doing, but I meant to? Okay, I'm gonna commit to doing that next season, next year. Okay? Stop is the same way. Here's something that I have been doing that maybe wasn't working so good. Maybe it's inefficient. Maybe it's something that's really holding me back. It could be a habit, right? It could be a drill. It could be any part of your life that is not really pushing you to be the best version of you. Maybe what's actually holding you back from being the best version of you. So starting something is adding something to your life, forcing yourself into something new. Stopping is taking something away, right? Both of those things take self-discipline to either get something rolling or to stop doing something that maybe is in your comfort zone, right? That you continue to do, and then continue. We all have talents, right? We know the parable of the talents. You all have something that you're good at. Everybody does. There is something that you're comfortable doing. There's something that you're good at, right? And when I talk to my coaches, let's don't forget to keep doing that. All right, let's don't get so caught up with other things that you forget what it is that you're good at and where your talents lie, and make sure that you're using them. Now, coming up, our calendar is about to flip, right? We're about to have us a new year, and we have a tradition of making little promises to ourselves that 85% of them are, we've quit doing by the end of January. Disclaimer, 95.6 of all statistics are made up on the spot, so I'm not sure if it's 85 or not, but it's got to be close. But we know New Year's resolutions typically don't stick. But I'm going to ask, what if this year was different? What if we set a goal this year that was more productive than diet and exercise, right? That's the most common one. What if we set a goal that makes us more valuable to those around us? What if we made connections that mean something? What if we took love your neighbor as yourself seriously? You say, okay, how? You know something that you could probably start that you've been meaning to. You probably know something that you need to stop or would help you on your journey if you did stop. And you know what you're good at. And so you can start, stop, continue, and set those goals in that way. You know what you can do. I'm not gonna rob you of your thoughts by giving you examples or anything like that. The internal battle that you have inside your mind is always going to be your biggest obstacle, right? We've heard that you are your own worst enemy, right? It is the internal struggle that you go through all the time. On my whiteboard in my office, I like to write down little quotes that I feel like I can read daily that'll give me a little spur. I've got one that the last one that I wrote up there says this. It says, the magic that you're looking for is often in the work that you're avoiding. The magic that you're looking for is often in the work that you're avoiding. I'm a procrastinator. That speaks right to my heart. And so when I see that, I go, yep, you're right. I need to get to work. I need to get this done. I need to get this started. And oftentimes it's just that first step of getting something started and you're on your way. And so I'll ask, are there resources around you that can help make your start, stop, and continue happen? Or can you be a resource to those around you to help make that happen for them? And at the end of our Bible verse, it says to rejoice. But rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. How do we rejoice in our sufferings? How is his glory revealed in us? Rejoicing in suffering sounds like an impossible task. And I'm going to wrap it up this morning with my last thoughts on this. So we talked about the Venn diagram, the circles, but I think of us as more than that. As I was conjuring up these ideas, I started picturing our lives as we start off as like maybe a square, right? And as life happens, as we hit things along the road, that square starts changing shape. Okay, it's a very moldable square. Maybe there's areas of your life that you've grown in, right? And so it starts to matriculate out and have some different things that come off of it, right? There's some dents in certain areas, and maybe you look a little bit more like a puzzle piece instead. Instead of a circle, we're a puzzle piece. Now, I had to look this up, but the little part of the puzzle piece that sticks out, right? I thought it looked kind of like a thumb. They call it a nose. That's the official term of the puzzle piece that sticks out is the nose. And the part that has gone away, the cutaway, is either called a hole or a notch. So you have, in your puzzle piece, you've got noses that you've grown through, things that you've gone through, right? And you have notches. And what I was picturing is, what was in my mind's eye was, you're going through something difficult. You're going through a struggle. Something is not, you've got a bump in your road, and that is creating a notch in your puzzle piece. But when you've gone through something, right? You've had a struggle. You've gone through pain. You have dealt with something that was very serious or something that it could be minor. But after you've dealt with that, with the love of the people around you, and you have survived whatever it is, and you have grown through the other side, you have a nose that sticks off of your puzzle piece. And so through your connection with another person, your struggle could fit the gap of another person that's struggling now, right? You've gone through it. You've dealt with it. People around you have helped you survive it, and you've grown through it. And now you have this extrusion that when someone else around you has the gap, you can help fill it for them, right? Now, is that worth rejoicing? If we're going to rejoice in suffering, I think that is how we do it. Your struggle can be your connection to other people. And my vision of how this expanded is your connection after connection after connection after connection, just like a puzzle, starts to build the most beautiful picture that God designed just for you to be used in His glory. And if you have holes in your life, if you've got notches in your puzzle piece, or you have talents that maybe you're not plugged in enough, right? And you're not using them, or you want to do that, you guys will come down. You can discuss that with our elders as we stand and sing.